about did something, so y'all forgive me, I got to make it right. Saturday is my 1 year anniversary of holy matrimony to Miss Amy Lynn over here. And so we going to the great state of Mississippi tomorrow. That's where romantic people go. No, I'm going to, T-Bone's going. Brother Tyler, when you hear me say T-Bone, it's either Terry Irvin or Brother Tyler. But we're going to, I don't know. I think we'll go out there and turn around and come back. Where are we going? Starkville. Mississippi State University has the presidential library for President Grant. And I'm going to go out there to the presidential library. Coincidentally, those of you who are Civil War buffs knows he split the Confederacy at Vicksburg. And in order to restore some sense of civility and some calmness between the states, he said maybe he could give his library to the Mississippi State University campus. And they gave it years ago, heard a story, and maybe just try to bury some old bones. So anyway, I'm gonna go out there and stumble around the library because that's what happening people like me do. What's Greg do for excitement? Oh, he buys a book, you know. So anyway, you pray for us. We'll be back Saturday afternoon. Coincidentally, I won't be able to help with the sewer thing. Look at God. I believe in the providential hand of the Lord. But let's jump in here right fast. Proverbs chapter 10. And thank you for being here. Hope you're enjoying these studies through the book of Proverbs. I'm going to push quick and get through Proverbs chapter 10 tonight, I think. Anything's liable to happen, but Proverbs chapter 10. Look with me, if you will, at verse 18. We'll start quick. I want you to pray about an outreach. We're doing a week from Saturday here in Hogansville, out here at the cliffs at Juan, Gladys's, and Sarah's subdivision. What's the name of it? Huntcliffe. We're gonna have a block party out there, and so you just pray God. I want you to come out there and visit with us, and we're gonna have a good time. Proverbs chapter 10. Look at verse 18. This is where we finished up 17 last night. He that hides hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth slander is a fool. And that's a very important word, the word fool. Sometimes we cover up what we feel in our heart by lies. Very important. Standing in the back of a church, a lady walks up holding an ugly baby. Isn't my baby beautiful? What do? That baby's something else right there. Adrian Rogers, somebody asked him, said, Dr. Rogers, in all your years of ministry, have you ever seen an ugly bride? He said, no. He said, I saw some that came close, but I've never seen an ugly bride. But we hide hatred. Now, that's the key word in verse 18. Hide hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth the slander is a fool. Be very careful about passing on. Not everything you hear about somebody is true. And I tell two preachers sitting at the table, I've told you the story. They were talking back and forth. One preacher looked at the other preacher, said, he's reading the paper. He said, you hear about so-and-so? He said, what about him? He said, he's an awful guy doing all these bad things. The other preacher looked at him and said, how do you know? He said, the newspaper said it. The other preacher looked at him and said, you know what the newspaper says about you? Be careful what you hear about people, because it's not always true. He said, he that utters the slander is a fool. Very important. Verse 18, look at verse 19. In the multitude of words there won't not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Be very careful. If I hear something about you, I better be careful before I tell somebody. Same thing with me. Be careful. In verse 18 is very important. I want to talk to us about that in just a minute. He that hideth hatred with lying lips. Now, if I'm going to hide hatred, where's the hatred at? In my heart. Be very careful. Look at Matthew chapter 5. Brother Tyler put up there on the talk. I was preaching one Sunday morning at a church I was pastoring, and I read this verse. And I said, a fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Man come up to me after the service. He taught in a seminary. He said, Reverend Morris. Now, somebody calls me that, I know they fix to ask me for some money, or they want to debate the Bible, because I'm not Reverend. And he said, Reverend Morris, I'd like to talk to you about something you said in your sermon. I said, what was it? He said, you called somebody a fool. I said, really, I didn't. God did. He said, well, we're instructed not to say the word fool, and we're going to talk about what he was saying to me. Look with me, if you will, skip down to verse 21, to Matthew chapter 5, verse 21. Ye have heard it said by time of them of old, Thou shalt not kill. Whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. Verse 22, by saying to you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. Whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of counsel. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Now that's where the preacher was getting it from. He said, don't call anybody a fool. But now wait a minute. We have over here in the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 18, said, he that uttereth slander is a fool. So maybe God's schizophrenic. No, God's not schizophrenic. What's he talking about? He's talking about the reason why you call somebody a fool. They pay close attention to verse 22. I say unto you, whosoever is angry with his brother without cause. Angry. So I have anger in my heart. See, the reason why I'm calling him a fool is because I'm angry with him. And God said if you have anger in your heart, it's the same as murder. He said don't call somebody a fool if you have anger in your heart. Be very careful, because what's on the inside is going to come out. So my dear brother was wrong in his interpretation of the scripture, and I tried to explain that to him. I said, sir, when we call people a fool, because God says that a man has said in his heart there is no God is a fool. God said if you utter slander, you're a fool. And somebody gets hate in their heart and calls somebody a fool in danger of hell and judgment because he said fool? No, because he has anger in his heart. See, ladies and gentlemen, if I can be angry against you and you can be angry against me, God can be angry with us. But if he decides to forgive us and keep his anger from us, I don't have any right to hold any anger against you. That's what it's saying. And look at the bottom part of verse 22. Thou fool shall be in danger of hellfire. Look at verse 23. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar and remembrance that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave thy gift there. And leave thy gift there before the altar and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, then come offer thy gift. God said having anger against somebody is so terrible that I want to answer your prayers. You know, there's a lot of people not getting their prayers answered, not because they're not praying right, because they won't have any unforgiveness in their heart. They got unforgiveness in their heart. I told you about the preacher who was in the hospital with a little girl, 7-year-old little girl. She had tonsillectomy. Said it was a routine day. Said he was sitting there reading the paper. And as they give the little girl some medicine, she's going to sleep for a little while, and then they're going to let her go home. She done ate all the ice cream she could eat. And said he was reading the paper for about 5 or 10 minutes. They looked up, and she's laying in a pool of blood. He said he called the nurse. Nurse picked the little girl up, ran down the hallway to the doctor. Said it was an awful. Said they rushed the little girl into the operating room. Said the pastor went to the bathroom, cut the light on, got down beside the commode with his Bible open, began to pray. He said he looked into the shower and he seen a picture of the man that he had anger in his heart toward at a church he used to pastor. All them years of unforgiveness. He said, the truth be known, I'd forgotten about it. But God hadn't. So he ran to the nurse station, tried to call back 2 states away where he used to try to find this deacon, couldn't find him. He said, God, I've done everything I could to get a hold of this man. He said, I'll make it right if you let me please heal my little girl. He said, about an hour or 2 later, they brought her back. Something happened, but she's healed and went home. He said he didn't forget about that promise he made God. Said he was preaching one day and said he stood up to preach and looked out, and there sat that deacon. He said he preached quick as he could, he said he closed, had everybody bow their head and walked down the aisle, and ran into somebody at the front of the pew. He said it was that deacon. He said that deacon had a travesty in his life that God spared him of if he got right with the preacher. The preacher's daughter was in the hospital and about bled to death because he wasn't right in the deacon. He said right there in front of God and everybody that's preaching, this deacon got things right with God. Well, it's very serious. Verse 23 is serious. Verse 24 is serious. God don't bless churches because of their unforgiveness and bitterness in people's hearts. Forgive me, there's people up here in the cemetery that couldn't get a prayer through because they had unforgiveness in their heart. Unforgiveness has no place in the hearts of God's people. That's what he's saying. He's saying in verse 8 to 18, he that hides hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth slander is a fool. In the multitude of words there won't not sin, but he refrain their lips is wise. Be very careful what I say. Be very careful about saying something I just heard. Be very careful. Look at verse 20. The tongue of the just is as choice silver, and the heart of the wicked is little worth. Verse 20 he's talking about now in verse 20, in verse 19, we're talking about the damage we can do. In verse 20, it's talking about that term, when you read the Bible and see the term silver, that's a picture of redemption. And he's saying our tongue can be a redemptive tool. They're not cussing people out because they cut us off in traffic. No. What can redemption do? Build people up. Look what it says in verse 20. The tongue of the just is as choice silver, and the heart of the wicked is little worth. Now, why do those two go together? Because we understand whatever's on the inside is going to come out. And he's saying in verse 20, the heart of the wicked is little worth. Therefore, nothing in the heart of a wicked person is going to do anybody any good. But verse 20, the tongue of the just is choice silver. Why? Because they got redemptive qualities in their heart. What's on the inside is going to come out. Me and Bill was standing out here in the parking lot one day, talking to a man and his son. Little boy. Wasn't school age, I don't think. He may have been in school, I don't know. This young man rattled off some of the worst vulgarity you ever heard. The church, I come up at a time when you got your mouth washed out with soap. Octagon soap. It wasn't that liquid. We didn't have that liquid. Octagon soap about the size, back then looked like the top of this pulpit. Daddy said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, that boy said that because he's hearing it somewhere. You know, like kids scream and yell, they hear mom and daddy screaming and yelling all the time. What's on the inside is going to come out. Now, the problem is that little fellow's going to turn into an older teenager, isn't he? Won't be able to keep a hands on him then. The tongue of the just is as choice silver. Why? Because I've got redemptive qualities in my heart. And I'm going to yield my heart to God and let God work through me. The heart of the wicked is little worth. Look at verse 21. Now we're talking about the lips of the righteous now. The lips of the righteous feed many. There's people you know, there's people I know. Just being around them helps you feel better. They just got sweet, kind of, you just feel better after you've been around them. There's some people you get around feel like they done sucked the life out of you. We don't want to be like that. We want to be like verse 21 that says the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. We're comparing again, remember we're teaching argumentative theology. Look at verse 22. The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich and adds sorrow with it. As I've been reading, I've probably read that verse 100 times last week or two, just studying the cross reference. I keep thinking about Job. You remember Job? Old Job had everything in the world. Here's what God said about him. Said he was the greatest man in the East. Said he loved God and eschewed evil. He did a sacrifice, which is a typology of worship in the morning, because his kids may have sinned against God. Very important. I mean, this man he'd say he eschewed evil. Here's what, you know what the devil said to God? Said the only reason why he serves you is you built a hedge about him. He said he serves you for naught. You take that hedge down, and he's not going to serve you anymore. That makes us think, why don't we serve God? If God's going to bless us and we're going to keep serving him, what if God takes our blessing away and we're going to still serve him? So God kept the devil on a leash and let the devil take everything that Job had. Killed his kids, killed his animals, killed his livelihood, broke his heart. Wife walked up to him and said, why don't you just curse God and die? Now, I say this to you often. She shouldn't have said that, but let's just be sympathetic just a minute. She just had a 10-casket funeral. You know, and she shouldn't have said it, but we say some pretty tough things when we're upset, don't we? Don't mean them, but we shouldn't have said them. And she shouldn't have said that, but she was heartbroken. So wait a minute now. Not only did he lose everything he had, not only his wife turned back on, well then Job went back to God and said, hey, anything a man give you for his health, God said you can touch everything about him, but don't take his life. Oh, Job got sick. Remember, he got boils all over his body? He had to sit down in the ash heap and take a broken pot and scrape the pus off his body. That's Job, one that loved God and eschewed evil. My goodness. Kind of like I read a newspaper article years ago, a lady killed her husband. I'm not giving you any ideas, ladies, but just killed her husband. And the picture in the newspaper was the wife was holding her husband and said, I love you so much, I love you so much. I thought to myself, hope I'll never meet nobody that loves me like that much, you know. Cut it in half a little bit. My wife watches them things where they're trying to investigate how to kill people. So if anything ever happens to me, y'all can't find me. She bought 200 pounds of lime the other day. I don't know why. What do you need lime for? I don't know. Anyway, so we understand that Job lost his livelihood. He lost his family. He lost his health. Then his buddy showed up. You got to love them guys. Job, God's righteous. He blesses righteousness. He curses evil. Since you're being cursed, you're evil. Job said, I'm as clean before God as I know to be. So from about chapter, 21 to 47, they argue, to about 36, they argue back and forth. Just, there's a spirit of ministry that people need when their heart broke. Don't go preaching at them. Back and forth. Then in about chapter 37, God shows up. And I don't know where it happened to Satan, but God said, Joe, I'm going to give you your blessing back. And I'm not going to add any sorrow to it. And that's kind of what that verse is saying in verse 22. The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich. Now probably if Job could sit up here and talk to us, he'd probably just skip that second blessing, wouldn't he? He said, look, you know what? Just leave me with the first one. I can't go through all that stuff again. But as you read the book of Job, you don't never hear about anything happen to Satan. He disappears. And God looked at Job's friends and said, everything you said is wrong, and I'm going to judge you until Job prays for you. And Job prayed for them, and they were forgiven, and Job got restored his stuff back to him. The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and addeth no sorrow with it. Look at verse 23. It said, it is a sport to a fool to do mischief, but a man of understanding hath wisdom. I'll never forget, I was reading here recently about a man named Adolf Eichmann. You know, I like World War II history. Adolf Eichmann was one of Hitler's lieutenants. Here's what he did. He went to the Hungarian government. Now, the Hungarian government has given allegiance to Hitler and said, we're not going to hurt the Jews. They had 800,000 Jews living in Hungary. And they said, we're not going to hurt you. Everything's fine. Just, we're going to trade with you. You give us 2 Jews, and we're going to give you a truck. We just need them to work for us. So they was trading people for vehicles. They come to him and said, listen, you've been a good supporter of the Nazi regime. We're going to take you we're going to let you escape and go to Spain, which is one of the Nazis' path, and you can live out your day. So he put 1,700 Jews on a train, a very nice train. And boy, they were so excited. They're getting away from all this murder. The Nazis aren't that bad. And when they got on the train went to a place called Burgos, Belgium, which is the second only to Auschwitz in killing people. Bad trick, lying. And of course, Adolf Eichmann died, and he's awaiting the judgment of Christ one day. And God's going to judge him sorely. But that's what kind of nonsense is talking about in verse 23. That said, is a sport to a fool to do mischief. I mean, they just enjoy committing trouble. They just enjoy committing sin. They just enjoy hurting people. Just enjoy it. He says it's a fool. It's a sport, or it's a joy to a fool to do mischief. But a man of understanding hath wisdom. Just going to back it up from him. Now look at verse 24. We're going to take off. The fear of the wicked, he shall come upon him. But the desire of the righteous shall be granted. God said somebody that chooses to live a life of disobeying God, the judgment's going to come on them. Now I understand that we live in a society where there's no responsibility, there is no accountability. People just live the way you want to, and it's society's problem. By the way, you've heard the name Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud's daddy was a Christian. Sigmund Freud seen Christians, his daddy was not Christian. His daddy was mistreated by Christians. I mean, just really abused the man, honestly. And Sigmund Freud got so mad at the Christians, he decided to spend his life trying to cast it out. And said that he was going to, he got mad at his daddy too for not standing up to him, and then got mad at the Christian people. So Sigmund Freud spent his entire life trying to blot out Christianity from a psychoanalysis point of view and all this other stuff. But here's what he said. He said, when somebody robs a bank, they are a robber in their heart. Listen to this carefully. They are a robber in their heart, so society should not judge them. That's what Freudism says. Freudism says that people are just going to do what they want to do. Nobody should cast judgment on them because people just are what they are. So did Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt, I don't know if you know about her husband, but he was not what we would call husband of the year. You know what I mean? I mean, just a very womanizing man. And she said about his multiple affairs. And by the way, the woman he had an affair with all them years was in the little White House when he died. I mean, it's just anyway. She said that a man is just a man. You can't change him. A man is just a man. He won't change. Just let people be who they are. Now here's the thought process of that. There's nothing biblical about that. We can't live just the way we want to, and society looks at it and says, well, you know what? That's just the way you are. Don't worry about it. Oh, you worry about it very much. If I go around catching people's houses on fire, oh, he's just a pyrotechnic. Don't worry about him. I mean, let him burn the place down. No, that's nonsense. Judgment comes. God sends judgment on people. And he establishes civil order and civil government to handle that. Verse 24 says that. The fear of the wicked is going to come upon them. Nobody gets away with sin. Well, preacher, there's a lot of people done wrong got by away with. Listen to me very carefully. Nobody, since the eons of time, has sinned and got by with it. Nobody. Well, preacher, they can't find them. Oh, no. You're talking about the police. You're talking about civil law. I'm talking about God. See, God knows all the secrets of our heart. Did you know that? Everything you thought today, God knows about it. So be very careful. But the desire of the righteous shall be granted. That's very important, isn't it? If we're righteous and love God, he wants to give us the desires of our heart. Oh, preacher, does that mean God's going to give me the desires of my heart if he wants you to have them? God's not too far from us that we think we are. Very, like a father. Little boy, everybody in here has got kids. Know you bought your kids stuff they don't need. That's what when you see parent, outside that it means sucker. That's what it is. Especially you grandparents. You know, like I say to you often, grandparents like the grandkids a whole lot better than like the kids. I mean, you know, just buy them what they want. Look, my grandparents are the same way. Look, that's just the way it is. Where do you think you got that from? God. Now, I'm not talking about sinful, ungodly things. But who do you think got the sun up for you this morning? You didn't have to do that, did you? Oh, no. And by the way, it's going to go down a little while. Guess who's going to, because you need rest. That's why God does that. God does some things sometimes you can't explain. Let me tell you, for instance, when I was about 18, no, I was 17, the most important person in my life was my grandmother. She raised me she come got me out of the hospital. So when I say she was my rock, she was my rock. Let me tell you a story. In 1994, we lived in a trailer park up in Palmetto. It flooded. And they got us out to take us out. Army or Corps of Engineers come out and firemen come out, and they put us on a bus and took us to a shelter, and we stayed there for, 2 or 3 days, but the place pretty messed up. So they give us these vouchers, and the vouchers, we could eat anywhere we wanted to. They put us up in a hotel, big nice hotel. Rented me a Lincoln Town car. I was 17 years old. Boy, you talking about something, Lord. So my grandmother and me, for about a week, Bill Gates didn't live any better than us. I'd walk in these restaurants, hold this little flyer up. They say, this way, please. Anything we wanted. We went to Ingles. I showed it up in where we were at, showed them the flyer. They said, get anything you want. Man, we were just living like kings. God, we was on vacation that God was paying for by the United States government. Little did I know in September my grandma was going to be gone. She passed away. Tough. And I'll never forget, I was in my room crying one night, and God spoke to my heart. He said, Greg, do you like that vacation? I said, I ain't never been to vacation. To this day, I've never been to a vacation I didn't have to pay for. I mean, I just had to show them that little flyer. Oh, yeah, come this way. What y'all want? Here's the menu. Don't worry about anything. I thought to myself, what did God do? God sent me and my grandmama, just me and her, on the only vacation she and I paid for by the federal government because the trailer park flooded. God's got a little sense of humor, don't he? Sure he does. Verse 24, the desire of the wicked shall be granted. I don't know what it is, but we found some carrot cake muffins. I went back the next week, couldn't find any. To this day, I can't find them. I don't know if God just put them there that one time or what. But you rejoice when you look back over your life and say, oh, God did that for that reason. Rejoice. Verse 24, but the desire of the right shall be granted. Look at verse 25. As the whirlwind passeth, so the wicked are no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation. Now, people focus on, this is a 2-part verse. The whirlwind passeth. Preachers, the whirlwind going to pass? Oh, yeah. Sure it is. Preacher, I've never had any problems. You will. You will. I promise you will. Your family's going to go through some dark days. That's just life. That's what Job said. Man that's born a woman is a few days and full of trouble. They're going to come. So the whirlwind's going to pass. Thank God for that. It don't stay, does it? It passes. It come to pass. So the wicked are no more. It just blows people away. But the righteous is the everlasting foundation. How did they make it through that? I don't know how in the world they did it. How did Job make it through all that? How did that marriage stay together? How did that business make it? Well, it was built on Jesus Christ. There's some things, look, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you this, you're going to face things in your life that you don't have the answer to. You're going to call the preacher, you're going to call the deacons, you're going to call everybody you know. Nobody's going to have the answer to it. And the only thing you're going to be able to do is push into Jesus Christ. Press into him. And let him guide and direct. That's exactly what Job did. That's exactly what Job did. You think them friends would help him, but he was by himself. As the whirlwind passeth, and thank God it does, so are the wicked no more. But the righteous is everlasting foundation. Thank God for that. If you and I had any sense, if we had a thimble full of brains, we'd build our life in obedience and surrender to Jesus Christ. And say, God, I want you to be my Lord, my master, and I want to obey you. Tell me what you want me to do. Because the main part of that verse, verse 25, as the whirlwind passes, it's coming. And if you got any age on, you could testify that you have lived through some whirlwinds. If it was up to you and I, we wouldn't live through anymore. But the truth is, we probably going to live through some, aren't we? We probably going to get some, it's always finances or family or health or something. You think, I went to the doctor, they didn't know what to do. What's happening? The whirlwind's coming. As vinegar to the teeth, let me read this, I'll be done. And as smoke to the eyes, vinegar, what you and I would call acidic. Let me tell you what the dentist tells you. Trust me, I've spent thousands of dollars. Tell you what the dentist tells you. Don't drink Coke. Do not drink crystal water. The sparkling water. It's got acid in it. It's going to eat the enamel off your teeth. It's going to hurt your teeth. Look at verse 26. And as smoke to the eyes. What's smoke do to your eyes? It makes it water, it makes them hurt, don't it? So is the sluggard to them that send him. You can't depend on them. If you got somebody sluggard working for you, they're going to cause you problems. God said they're going to hurt you like vinegar hurts your teeth, and they're going to hurt you like smoke does your eyes. But he's talking about right now the work of God, obeying the Lord. Well, examine our heart and ask ourselves, are we hurting the Lord's work? Are we obeying God? As vinegar to the teeth, and as smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to them that send him. Very important. I don't want to hurt God's work. I hope you don't. I can probably testify, nobody here wants to hurt God's work. So the sluggard to them that send him. My goodness. God's comparing sluggish people to folks that get the enamel off their teeth and got smoke to their eyes. That's a pretty bad situation. So let's decide that in verse 25, we're going to build our life on a solid foundation. And in verse 26, we're going to do what we can to be an encouragement and build things up. In verse 27 through verse 32, every one of them verses are either or. We either do this or we do this. Verse 27, the fear of the Lord prolongs days. Thank God for that. But the years of the wicked shall be shortened. Going to have one of them. Remember, obeying God, that can add years to your life, but also can add life to your years. Verse 28, the hope of the righteous shall be gladness, but the expectation of the wicked shall perish. Can you see how it's doing that? You get on a set of steps, you're either going to go up or down. That's kind of what it's talking about. Spend your life obeying God and watch him work for you. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Father, we love you now. Please examine our hearts, God. Help us be everything you want us to be. And help us, God, build our life on a solid foundation. Treat people decent. Speak life into people. And watch you work through us. And grant the desires of our heart because they're pleased and obedient to you. And good for us. We love you, Lord. Help us love one another. Help us love the unsaved. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Y'all dismissed. Thank y'all being here tonight.